But there's a lot going on in the world, and we've got Derek on the call. So, Derek, we got to talk about the possibility of the United States going to war with Iran. Derek, Felix, I don't know how you guys feel, but like just this week, I have felt like a sickening, sinking feeling in that, like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know the extent of what the United States is going, how we're going to get involved in this. I mean, we already are involved, but like, how big a bite of the apple we're going to end up taking on behalf of Israel is kind of an open question. But like it is nauseating to watch this happen, and I really feel that like this is just an unbelievably grave moment in American history. So I don't really know where to begin here with this, but like I will say that like at this point, as best I can tell, it does not matter one whit how much Iran may or may not want to negotiate or bring this conflict to an end or capitulate in some way matter, because the more that they do, the more that will almost assuredly invite more violence. Because like there is no stopping Israel and the United States right now. I don't know what it's going to look like, but like I'm expecting the worst.
Yeah, the thing that is striking to me is just how little of an effort they're putting into it this time.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh man.
Trump is just parroting this. Well, that they have to negotiate. They cannot have a nuclear bomb line, which I at one time thought that Tony Blair and Bush had poisoned WMDs as a casus belli, at least in the West. But no, I mean that apparently not when no one gives a shit. And I thought they need to negotiate line. I thought that wouldn't fly in other places just because the obvious fact is they were negotiating when they were bombed. That anyone who has a memory that stretches more than 24 hours will recognize that fact. But I got a very sinking feeling when I saw the German Chancellor Merz say this, because it was like if the Euros aren't even trying to keep up an appearance of propriety, this is, I mean, to some, a foregone conclusion that they now recognize we don't even need the pretense of public opinion or even a reason to do any of this. This is an automatic process. We can just stumble through it like we're at a ribbon cutting ceremony for a new community center.
It really is like the comparison to the Iraq War and how much buildup they did for that. Like they sent Colin Powell to the UN with
you had to show that vial of cocaine soda, to everyone. Yeah,
they're like, hey, this is anthrax; it could kill us all. And like they're not even bothering at this point. I feel like I saw you like respond to that tweet about Mertz saying like Iran has to come back to the negotiating table. They were fucking already at the negotiating table. Like, what are you talking about? It's so amazing. And I noticed like a couple of things this week that like, first of all, on I guess like Monday night into Tuesday, Trump went on just this social media bender where he started referring to everything as we, like we know where Khamenei is. We're not going to kill him for now, but we control the skies over Iran. I'm like, are we already in it? Like, what's this we shit? Like, is the U.S. already involved in? Like, did you just backdoor the U.S. into this? And it's been just exhausting, not just watching this kind of slow motion train go forward, but like trying to keep up with Trump's constant, verbal whatever. It's just exhausting trying to keep up with him anymore. I notice he's back to governing by cliffhanger now, where he does the thing where, there's some, horrific thing about to happen or some really, meaty thing that he's got to decide what to do. And the press asks him about it. And he says, well, I don't know. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. You'll have to wait and see. Like, what the fuck are you? This isn't the season finale of Breaking Bad. You're the president of the United States. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Answer a question, for Christ's sake. It's just maddening.
I thought about this especially during the 2024 presidential election. With Trump, there is like verbiage and certain phrases he picks that are, unambiguously hilarious. But this broad opinion among people that became like the broad cultural truth that he's just so funny and entertaining, and we can't keep him out of there. It's the funniest and most entertaining thing. And it's like, we already saw what it looks like when he's actually president. The neocons are in charge of everything, and every shitty fucking world and shitifying thing they want to do, everything that makes the world unambiguously worse, everything that in 10 years, this will be indirectly the reason why you have to take your underwear off at TSA, why you have to let TSA look at your children's genitals. He will get up there and he will just do the same it's sweeps weeks thing. We already saw it. It's both incredibly tedious, and now we've already seen it. It particularly like makes me angry at the people who sold the idea of like Trump as this anti-war candidate. Ridiculous the first time. Ridiculous after seeing him at the end of his term assassinate Qasem Soleimani. I don't know how anyone did that twice, but they did it. Now, I guess those people they're putting forth the narrative that like he hates Netanyahu, but they're doing the things that Joe Biden's team would leak to Politico for him from the outside. It's just all around, just both tedious and nerve-wracking.
I mean, and we mentioned it already, but just this sinking feeling, like it's your stomach is turning over, thinking about like the prospect of the United States just starting a war with Iran on behalf of Israel, and I'm like, I don't like again, like we talk with Seamus. I don't even know if you can talk about this anymore. I'm like on whose behalf this is being done, because I just think it's like it's all one entity. It's all one satanic entity, and the thing that like many people have pointed out, like listener, if you're too young to ever remember this, like the big difference between now and like right before we invaded Iraq, Derek, you alluded to it, is that like after 9/11, there was like a good chunk of the American public that was like all in on invading the Middle East. But even in that context, they still had to go out of their way to like make up bullshit and like to give it to the New York Times about weapons of mass destruction. Colin Powell had to do his whole song and dance routine in front of the UN. There was this whole like consent manufacturing apparatus, which now they're not even bothering with to even like a ludicrous degree. And this is like, there is no appetite or popular support for any U.S. involvement in a conflict with Iran at all in this country. Like
even majorities of Trump's voters,
say
they don't want to do. They don't want this. It's just
and the fact that like it makes no difference whatsoever. Like you turn on the news and any discussion of the potential of a war on Iran is only filtered through like Israeli government spokespersons or their think tanks in Washington D.C. There is no debate about this whatsoever, and like. It's just like watching a car accident happen in slow motion, except nobody's driving the car and you and your entire family are in the back seat. I'm like, I say that as an American. I mean, like, that's nothing compared to what like the people of Tehran must feel right now. Trump ordered the city to be evacuated to a bigger metropolitan area than New York City.
The Israelis and Americans love that. Posting something on an English language Twitter at like 4 a.m. Iran local time. I saw Nancy Mace boost that, which really helpful to all the people in Tehran who are up at 4 a.m. who are already following Nancy Mace and refreshing her feed. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
Where my Mace heads at?
Israelis love this too, where they would give warnings to Gaza in 2023 in the English language, which is just
right.
So, I mean, 20 years ago, they would at least go through the trouble of like doing that in Arabic, but everything is so broken down, it's stupid. I mean, the communication style of everything now is just, there's this winking thing where everyone like, oh, wait till you see what bullshit I come up with to explain this. It's just pointless to do any of this. But this is just particularly nauseating because you're dealing with like a potential mass death event. I mean, to me, all these warnings that supposedly show off how humanitarian we are, which, by the way, Iran does in local language, actually warning people. When we or Israel do it, it comes off like when ISIS would warn people they're taking over Rome, except there's an actual threat of us doing it. You talked about the CNN reportage. One of their experts, their new paid experts they have on, is John Conricus, who, if you remember that name, He was the former spokesman of the IDF, who he was so bad they replaced him with that dead-eyed former Israeli former frogman who did that ridiculous display where he found the hidden Hamas switch box underneath Al-Shifa Hospital. He was too shitty even for the Israeli government, but he's good enough for CNN.
Yep.
Like, wasn't Conricus the guy who went down in the basement of the hospital and was like, look at this, it's a schedule for the terrorists.
No. That was the guy they replaced him with.
Okay, and it was just like a fucking calendar. It was just like a wall calendar with the names of the week on it. Like, just, that's the caliber of shit, though, that gets passed off.
I mean, the guy who did the calendar thing was better than him.
Because it's just like our government is the Israeli government right now. And and we see in our media, we see that fact borne out 1,000 times over. And once again, the thing that's astonishing to me about this is that despite the fact that our entire government seems to be on board with this, our entire media, unlike the Iraq War, the amazing thing now is that it's not working as far as the population goes, but it doesn't matter. And this to me is really the final manifestation of the complete lack of democratic legitimacy in all Western governments, that we are now this is what we existed. This is what the governments do. And how the citizens of these countries feel about it has no bearing whatsoever. And I guess I'll talk about that in light of the big news clip that's going around today, which was Tucker Carlson's interview with Ted Cruz, and in which Tucker asked Ted Cruz what the population of Iran is and what it's the sort of demographic of ethnic groups is, and Ted Cruz, of course, indignantly and proudly had no clue.
How many people live in Iran, by the way? I don't know the population at all. No, I don't know the population. You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah.
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay,
it's not even... You don't know anything about Iran. So
I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the one who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump.
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that...
We are carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was.
Right, with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity.
No, we're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting Israel.
High stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
Okay. He had not even the most basic idea, but I guess I bring this up because not in the sense that you do in fact have to hand it to Tucker Carlson. I'll just say what does it say if you're concerned about Tucker Carlson coming across as reasonable here or saying something that needs to be said? What does it say that he's the fucking one saying it? Why is the nationalist fascist rights, the fascist right, the only one that can voice any opposition to this fucking catastrophe that we are fucking just blindly going dick first into?
I mean, if you're going to go by Democratic statements, Chuck Schumer's most recent statement, unless he said anything today during this reporting, he was doing the taco Trump thing and saying that Trump was a taco. Trump always chickens out for negotiating with Iran during the famous negotiations that now we have to bomb Iran for not doing. With the obvious takeaway being that Trump should be courageous and just attack them. So he has to now commit to saying this is good, or else he'll have to go out and say, oh, that taco thing was just a stupid thing we made up. We don't believe that.
And it's an unpopular president who is pursuing a war of aggression that is overwhelmingly opposed by the American public on both sides of the aisle. And there is absolutely no opposition being, there are sparse examples of members of Congress who are trying to get behind this war powers resolution, which is all right and proper given that the war making powers of our country are embedded in the Congress, not the presidency. The problem with that, though, is I have no confidence whatsoever that our Congress wouldn't just give him the authority to do it if he asked for it.
That's the thing. Like the message from Schumer and like the real senior Democrats is like, you can't go to war unless you come to Congress first and brief us, and then we get to vote on it. And by gum, we'll vote to give you permission to go to war. Like, what the fuck? What the fuck are you doing? Like, come on. And it really is. Yeah, there's just a few people. Like Tim Kaine has a war powers resolution. Bernie Sanders introduced something, I think, to prevent
Thomas Massey on the right
force. Yeah, Thomas Massey's been a stronger advocate of this stuff than most Democrats. Like it's just bizarre. Like what does this party stand for other than Israel's right to defend itself, which is the thing that they keep blathering about? Nobody else has a right to defend themselves, just Israel.
Especially nauseating in, I cannot state enough how much none of this needed to happen. The conventional knowledge, anyone who was talking about this before, right before the strike started, and there was rumblings about, was Israel going to do this? The conventional knowledge, even in like mainstream media, was, he's facing problems in his coalition. Like, the fucking ultra orthodox, they may revolt against like the concept of literacy. So he's going to have to open up a new front to like hold his government together. And lo and behold, he does it. The thing that they have been doing since 2023 and for fucking decades and decades before that. But that is, they initiate a first strike on Iran. The entire reason any of this is happening, the entire reason that we are seeing videos of people singing songs from Mamma Mia in Israeli bomb shelters. This was an Israeli policy, an Israeli decision. This unambiguously started due to Israeli actions, but that is totally absent from anything. It's just any defense of this is like, so Israel can't defend itself from like the Islamic death cult.
It's like when I hear people talk about this, like people saying like, okay, why are we getting involved? Why are we joining Israel? And Derek, you mentioned earlier this we they thing. To me, like the most incredible part of the Tucker Carlson Ted Cruz interview was not that Ted Cruz doesn't know how many people live in Iran, but it was the moment where like it was the we thing where he was just like, where Ted Cruz is like, we're bombing them right now, and then Tucker goes, wait, we? Like, are you saying right now that the United States is involved in like a military action against Iran? He's like, well, they're bombing them, but we're helping them. And then it's just like, wait a second, like that doesn't make any sense either. It's this we they thing where like we literally cannot distinguish anymore between Israel's actions or Israel's interests and that of the United States. Later in the interview, he wouldn't even say, I think it's wrong that Israel spies on the US president.
Do they spy domestically in the United States?
Oh, they probably do, and we do as well. And friends and allies spy on each other. And I assume all of our allies spy on us.
And that's okay with you?
You know what? One of the things about being a conservative is that you're not naive and utopian. You don't think humans are all... Part of the reason socialism doesn't work is the mantra from each according to his abilities to each according to his needs doesn't work. As a conservative, I assume people act in their rational self-interest.
So it's conservative to pay people to spy on you?
There is no we or they anymore. It is all just Israel.
It's undifferentiated.
Because their air defense system is getting ran through right now, and to do anything much more, like they're going to need like heavy American assistance in terms of the selection of targets and the use of munitions on them. And does anyone have any confidence that they're not going to get exactly what they ask for?
Yeah, they've gotten it every step of the way. Remember when Rafah was Joe Biden's red line? Does anyone remember that?
It's been funny. I mean, speak of Rafah, like there was some pro Israeli account that tweeted like these side-by-side pictures of one Israeli strike on an Iranian building that happened to the missile happened to go through the wall versus an apartment building in Israel that had been decimated. And they're like, do you see the difference here? And it's like, have you looked at a fucking overhead photo of Rafah? It's completely destroyed. Every building in the fucking city has been obliterated by the IDF. So if your argument is we do targeted strikes and they just blow up entire building, no, I mean, come on, like what are we talking about here? But like Felix, to your point about the sort of hand wringing about Israel's, poor Israel and can Israel defend itself? I don't know if you saw the Washington Post headline from I think it was yesterday. That Israelis are reeling from Iranian barrages and bracing for a new kind of war. It's just so everything's from that perspective.
The subheader was they feel they are losing their long-held sense of safety. And it's like, hey, guy, hey, I'm reeling. I went to, there's a cop who lives across the street from me. I went into his house at 4 a.m. and I shot his dog 57 times. I used to feel safe in my house. Now I just don't. Like, I don't know why. That thing about like the picture of the missile going through the window, that may be moving to some. If there weren't, like, at this point, multiple reports of Israelis who, because of their destruction of UNWRA, get to administer aid through this very weird fucking evangelical organization, basically using aid sites as bait to massacre
right, they're kettling
civilians.
people. I mean,
they shot people with tank shells yesterday, killing 50, 70, 100. And I remember when like the first one of these like aid distribution massacres happened. It was like, it was reported on, and then Israel immediately came out with like, oh no, like it was actually Hamas shooting those people. And then like the Western press was like, oh yes, very good, okay. And then like it happens a second time, a third time, a fourth time, and now it's a daily occurrence. Once again, like this mentioned, no one is even bothering to justify it. And this is happening at a time when, like, I have noticed, like, there has been, like, a slight rhetoric. There has been, like, a slight shift in perspective among the elite media in this country and the West, where there are, like, certain institutions that are, like, you sort of see which way the wind is blowing, and they're like, regretfully, it has come to a point where now we must admit that, like, perhaps Israel is committing war crimes intentionally and is doing something that sort of is maybe one of the not good words, but we're still not going to say it. But we can't deny anymore that this is anything other than them just like slaughtering unarmed civilians. But like, I don't think that's going to make much of a difference. And like, and also at the same time, as this country turns its like I said, ICE over to just like a national ethnic cleansing army, a national ethnic cleansing mafia of masked like men without warrants or badges just pulling people off the street. And it's just like, we've talked before about how like the goal here is to just turn America into Israel, like turn America into like a apartheid state. I mean, I guess we already have been, but like, I guess that's not new. But like now we're just seeing its most savage application is like, in order to help Israel, we must become them entirely.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw that story about the Australian writer who he tried to re-enter this country, and ICE just flat out told him that they're confiscating his phone and detaining him and then sending him back to Australia because he wrote an article covering the Columbia student protests.
Yeah.
Not he was a participant. None of the things that they, tried to do with Mahmoud Khalil, where it's like, oh, it's, he's providing, I guess, moral support for Hamas. None of that even. It's just flat out in the open. If you write any article other than look at these modern day pogroms at Columbia, get the fuck out of here.
I guess I bring up like the slight shift in perspective among the elite press, as there does seem to be some like cracking up of the dam of what people are willing to say publicly about what anyone with a fucking brain or a conscience has known for the last 2 years. And then like also the ICE raids in this country. Like I think about this, and I want to reference something that Terrence from the Trillbillies said this week that I think is 100% true. Is that like, this is all not just like separate issues. Israel is the dominant issue of our entire politics and the entire global situation right now, and there is no denying it. You can wish that wasn't the case, but like you cannot make sense of anything happening in this country without talking about Israel. Israel is the reason Donald Trump is president right now. Israel, like you can't get around that. That is why the Democrats lost the election, and that is why everything is happening right now. And like this idea that like, oh, it's why are you focusing on this? It's just such a small issue. Like, like isn't it suspicious the way you focus on Israel to the exclusion of everything else? I'm sorry. Look at what's happening right now. They're about to get us involved in a war with Iran. And like, until you can flatly and honestly state that like Israel is the problem here, there is no political movement or cause of any relevance, as far as I'm concerned. That if you cannot confront that central fact of American life right now.
I mean, we said it much earlier on that like one of the biggest utilities of Israel to America now, this form of America, is that, among other things, a ton of other uses, and we've gone into both the ways that it is a client state and the things that the ways that framework just vastly is outmatched by how unique and kind of unprecedented this entire relationship is. But one of the very useful things they're doing for America now is, and that they've always done, is they provide a useful metric of what is the worst thing we can get away with. And in a worsening world with fewer, let's say, creature comforts for the average American, where climate refugees will have to be gunned down at the border, and more measures must be taken to keep the hogs at bay and to prevent future Luigis from popping up. It is very useful to know how far can we go without someone making us stop.
Yeah, it's a test case. It controls our politics and restricts our speech in ways that I think resonate way beyond what Israel is doing. But the other thing that I come back to when people say things like, "Why do you care so much about this? Like, why does this matter so much to you?" It's a fucking. I mean, this all starts with the Palestinians. It's a fucking genocide. Like they're cleansing Gaza and the West Bank of Palestinians. This is a crime against humanity that's taking place before our eyes with the support of the United States. Like it would be impossible to do without the United States. We enable all of this stuff, which is the answer whenever you get one of these people. It's like, well, why don't you care about what's happening in Sudan or these other places, which none of them, of course, give a shit about. They only care about any of the other atrocities that are happening in the world to the extent that they can try to shame people for caring about the Palestinians. But it's, my country is doing this shit. Like my government is fucking doing this shit. That's why it matters.
Could you imagine asking a Holocaust scholar, hey, why do you care about this thing so much? It's not even happening anymore.
Yeah, there have been other genocides that have happened.
Yeah,
why is this one so important? Yeah.
Yeah, why aren't you a Rwanda scholar, asshole?
Yeah. And once again, it's just the really striking thing to me now is that absolutely nobody wants this, but it does not matter one whit.
No, it's sort of pulled the mask off. I mean, you guys have talked about this, and we've talked about this on in terms of like the Gaza campaign, even before that, but like the 20 months since the October 7th attacks, just how little effort anymore gets put into like trying to obfuscate what's happening or trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. Nobody cares anymore. And that's because we've really figured out that it doesn't matter. Like you don't have to convince the public of anything. It's just on autopilot. You fucking do what you want. It's all insulated from democratic input anyway. So why bother? Why put the resources into doing, detailed Hasbara when you can just shove a camera in a hole and say, look, it's a terror tunnel underneath, Dodger Stadium or whatever the fuck. Like you don't have to make it make sense. You just have to go through the motions and do what you want to do anyway.
Right. And as long as you have like that 20% of people that they will just like anything that is the Republican, that is the like Donald Trump line right now, that's enough. You don't need to convince 90% of people for this potentially world ruining thing. You just need like a few million dumbasses who will get out there and go, I don't want Iran to launch a nuke at my kid's recital.
Right. It's such a strange. It's taken as a given that Iran is definitely building a nuke, despite the fact that they're the only intelligence that says that they were, you know, in the process of trying to develop nukes is this phantom intelligence from Israel that nobody's seen, or that they supposedly showed the U.S. and U.S. analysts were like, "No, we don't. It doesn't show that." And then Trump said, "Who cares?
I don't
believe
care.
the Israelis.
I don't care.
I don't believe my own. I don't believe my own intelligence agencies. Like, you spend $100 billion a year on those agencies. What the fuck are you spending that money for if you're not going to listen to them?" But then, beyond that, like the notion that if Iran, this country that you have attacked repeatedly now, that you are going to, unless you get some miraculous outcome of like regime change and replaced by like Jeb Bush gets elected president of Iran, like you're going to keep attacking them over and over again in perpetuity. The precedent has now been set. There's no reason for the Iranians to expect that this pattern is ever going to end. That if they developed a nuclear weapon, if they decided to go for broke and say, this is we need a nuclear weapon, that they would turn around and use it rather than just brandishing it and saying, don't fucking attack us anymore, which is what everybody else does with their nukes. Like, why would this country be any different? I don't understand that. And I don't think anybody else does either. This is just a thing to say to justify the aggression that you wanted to or the course that you wanted to take anyway.
I mean, compare and contrast what Trump said and what Trump did with Kim in North Korea. I mean, if that does not say it all, even the most deluded MAGA fan should probably be able to remember that. The iconic photo of when they were both sitting in those chairs and Trump said that great line, how do the pictures look? Do we both look skinny? But in one of his better moments,
is the answer.
No, absolutely not. There is no angle that but
camera in the world.
A good moment of diplomacy where he recognized that his counterpart also had his same bizarre body image issues, but the difference there was the fucking nuclear weapon. The way that everyone uses them now as a "don't fuck with us" tool. And the only people it doesn't work on are, India and Pakistan. I don't know what you guys have going on, but apparently it doesn't matter to you guys. It matters to everyone else.
I mean, the side by side is Trump at brunch with Kim Jong-un versus Muammar Gaddafi's dead body being paraded around by U.S.-backed rebels. Like, this is what happens when you have nukes. This is what happens when you're on the shit list and you don't have nukes. It couldn't be more clear what the logic is here, even for people who otherwise don't believe in the concept of nuclear deterrence. And I don't want nuclear proliferation. I think all nuclear weapons should be done away with. But the U.S. and Israel have created a logic that is inescapable. Like, this is what happens when you got them. This is what happens when you don't. And there's no in between. Like, you've got to make a choice.
A note to that thing about being on the shit list. We saw what that means with Syria. Israel got their, I think their ideal outcome, if they had absolute, everything went perfectly for them. Syria would be like one of those fake maps that Gunther posts where like Russia and China are divided into like 50 different ethnic emirates. Like that's the best of all worlds for them, for Syria. But they got their second best, which is Giuliani's in control. There are regular pogroms of Shias and Alawites, but that they still kept bombing them. They still kept making incursions there because there's nothing you can do. When you're on this shit list, it's not really there because of anything you're doing. It's because of where you are and what can be done with you. So if Iran, tomorrow that they go, we fucking did it. We got rid of the mullahs that you hate. Khomeini's gone. We're having democracy. Everyone's dancing like in those videos you love. They would still find a fucking reason. The only thing that brought down the Israeli strikes on Syria, even under Giuliani's control, it was Syria allowing them to use their airspace to attack Iran.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to keep getting the shit end of the stick until you give up everything. And even then, you're probably going to get some of that shit in because you're on the shit list, pal. There's nothing you can do except to have a fucking nuke, the only guarantor of sovereignty now.
I see people talk about the Netanyahu wants regime change in Iran. This is a regime change operation. They're trying to topple the evil theocratic regime, and but it's really not, because they're not proposing an alternative. Like, I think the logic of regime change is you take out the offending regime and you have something that you try to put in place and establish instead of that. And this is more just like regime collapse. Like, we don't care what comes after. We just want Iran to be destroyed, essentially, as a nation state. We want the government to be to fall apart. We want chaos, and just, I think the goal here really is a region that where you've got Israel, you've got the Gulf states, and everything in between is just this undifferentiated mass of chaos. There's no functioning government. There's no functioning military anywhere. There's no functioning state apparatus of any kind. It's just people struggling in the rubble of whatever the Israelis have allowed them to have left, and subjugated to whatever regional order we're able to put on top of that. But I don't think the process goes far enough to really call it a regime change operation. They just want destruction at this point.
Yeah, I mean, and the old model, the Bush model we have for regime change and nation building, which, similar to Trump, he ran against in 2000, against the concept of what NATO was doing in the Balkans. But that is an old model because it is for a world where you have to make it look like you give a shit. And that is not the world we live in anymore. I remember in, I think, like 2015, someone calling me anti-Semitic because I said that if you look at Israel's actions in the region, that you cannot conclude any coherent policy goals besides expansion, and for every neighboring country to be mired in chaos and to no longer be states. If they succeed and they remake the region in their image, the line will be, well, you're anti-Semitic if you don't realize why they need to do that. It will no longer be, we can't allow these people to have nukes. We can't allow these people to have fucking ballistic missiles. It will be, well, what, are you really going to let them have a state? Are you really going to let them have a coherent identity and borders when Israel's there? Do you know what they did the last time they had a fucking state?
Right. And then it goes from there to, like, you're going to let them have food? Really?
Yeah.
You're going to let them eat? You're going to let them have clean water? Like, what? How can you do that? This is an existential threat to Israel. You can't let them, let these people have food and water. That's crazy.
They're developing currency. They're using basic tools. We have to go now.
They have bandages. Like, people who get injured are healing their cuts. This is unacceptable.
Yeah, in 2035, you will wake up in your AI Palantir sleep pod. You'll do your retinal scan to get your allotment of Great Lakes, 12 ounces of Great Lakes fresh water. And you will say the passcode, which is, Israel has a right to Hokkaido, Japan. It was part of ancient Israel. And we can't allow Japan to have a language.
Derek, I know you got to go, so let's wrap it up here. But like, I guess like the last thing I want to say here is that, like, I realize that, like, in a lot of ways that this is just the story of the American history, but like in my lifetime, and particularly like in the decades following 9/11, I just feel like this country has more than ever been like lulled into this kind of imperial dream state and this endless fantasy of violence done overseas on our behalf to other people. And we've been lulled into this like idea that like none of it's real. It's just it's a TV show we watch. It's just like it's a story about our virtue or our flaws. And we're seeing it more and more every day. Like, it's a cliche, but like, this is going to touch us. All of the violence that we do in the world, all the wars that we start, all the people we kill, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but like, I have bone deep conviction that all of this will touch me or someone I know or any of you within our lifetimes. And
I
it's
mean,
just a matter of
yeah.
like, are we going to do anything to stop it? Like I said, like nobody wants this. Is there any juice left in the organs of democracy in this country? Are there any leaders who can step up and give voice to peace, to an end to this permanent warfare state of just inflicting violence for no reason on other countries at the behest of our greatest and most perfect ally, who's also just us, our little tulpa? Like, I don't know, like if ever there was some great reservoir of sympathy for Israel among the United States public, it's running out quickly. And it better run out faster because like like there's not much time left. I don't know what to say. This doesn't have to happen. Like we could stop it all tomorrow if a decision was made to just end it.
Yeah,
I can't say I'm particularly optimistic about that happening, but the point is that we are committing suicide right now. This is an act of national suicide and like a kind of frenzied death drive of which there is like very little hope of turning out of. But like I do hold to my soul and heart the idea that regular people do not want this. They no one anywhere in the world wants wars like this. Will it make a difference? I don't know, but like just in closing, my heart and thoughts are with obviously Gaza, the Palestinians, but also everyone, the people of Iran, like all of our like any of our listeners or friends who have family in Tehran or Iran right now. I'm thinking of you, and for whatever happens after this, there's no one to blame other than the United States and Israel. It's our fault. And how bad the consequences of our actions are going to be for people in this country remains to be seen, but there will be consequences.
and we will have earned them if this does
Yeah,
not stop.
Absolutely.
It was heartrending to see people I know who they have their parents, their grandparents, cousins, siblings, nieces and nephews in Iran, in Tehran, in the city that has been, this whole thing started with Tehran being attacked, that has been threatened. The possibility of them being nuked has been talked about with the same cadence of people prognosticating about a football game. It's something I frankly cannot really imagine, that your family would be in this place, living their lives, all the history, the personal history you have there, every memory, that it is just this, I don't, will I attack it? I don't know. Just this frivolity to everyone else. I don't know what that would feel like. I won't pretend that I could even imagine that. But, we talk about this country being the world's greatest perpetrator of evil. It is one thing to know that and in an intellectual sense, but both in these past 20 months in Gaza and now, it is another thing to see it. So for whatever it's worth, our hearts are with you.
I don't have very many solutions here, but I will say that it all begins with just saying no. Just for whatever that means, removing your consent from a government and just a system that does this, and by the way, only does this and does nothing for you. It only kills people and only endangers your life. I think it begins with just this can't go on. This cannot go on.
We don't have to live in this world where I saw this video of this guy he was baking bread. It was late at night in Tehran, and they asked him, are you gonna go inside? Are you gonna try to seek shelter because there's another Israeli strike with American-made bombs coming soon? And he said, no, I want to stay out here. I want to make bread for the people who, they've lost their homes. They've lost, maybe they've lost employment. They can't feed themselves. It makes me happy to do this. And that man died that night. We don't have to live in a world where selfless people like that die at the hands of people who riot for their right to rape people who do not belong to their ethnic group solely on that basis, or at the hands of this country, at the hands of, a man who spent his life groping models and, losing money on fucking slot machines, or the next guy after that, the next thing after this. We don't have to live in a world where people like that live and die by those kinds of people's mercies or whims. We do now, but it really does not have to be that way.